Hello gorgeous people, how are you all? I hope you're well. Oh my goodness, it's near to hand. You're joining me on yet another really muggy day in London. It's not that the temperature's super high, it's the humidity, it's bonkers. We were supposed to have a socking great storm last night. It didn't happen, but what we did have was hours and hours through the night of really gentle rain, the perfect kind of rain for the garden, because when it's gentle it lands, it soaks in, the plants get a drink, rather than when it's really heavy and it just washes away. So yay, I got a pass on watering the garden today. And although I'd quite like to go to the garden anyway, just to do a bit of tinkering. I love my tinker time. I've got plenty of things to get on with indoors, so that's what I'm doing. But first of all, I thought I'll just check in with all of you and have a little wee chat. I've got a couple of books to tell you about, a couple of absolute crackers. But first of all, I'm going to share a memory, because I think it will spark memories for you, for your youth too. It came about because I was chatting like this way with our lovely Rob in Saskatchewan. I don't know how it came up actually, but the subject came up of seasonal work, summer jobs, the summer job. And I whooshed back in time to my first summer job. Such great memories. So I had already been working from the age of 14. I started working in the corner shop on our estate, and I worked Saturdays and Sundays, every Saturday, every Sunday, from the age of 14 to the age of 18. When I think back on it, I think, how did I fit everything in? Because, school Monday to Friday, working Saturday and Sunday, after school, most nights after school, I was in some sort of after school club, whether it's one of the sports clubs or obviously the drama club. Science club, I was my school's mathlete. There was a team of 4 of us. We're mathletes for our school. Going out with my mates. Anyway, I fitted it all in somehow. But then, so I got to the age of 18, it was the summer of 1985. Just finished my A-levels, finished at college, and I got a place at university, but I wouldn't be starting till the end of September. And so I jacked in my Saturday-Sunday job, because my university was in a completely different town, miles and miles and miles away. So I had this July, August, September, the whole summer stretching ahead of me. But I was thinking, I'm just going to read all day, I'll lie under a tree and read. Anyway, my mum had different ideas. She was like, hop it you, go and get a job. So I did. I got my first ever full-time job. Although in hindsight, it was a full-time job. I think I had more time off than I'd had from the age of 14 to 18, because I didn't have school on top of it. I got a job in my grandparents' town. My grandparents by then had moved from the village up on the downs. They'd moved down into the town on the beach. So I got a job, as so many people my age did, for the summer, working at a hotel. But it wasn't just any hotel. I got a job working at the Grand Hotel. That was the name of it, the Grand Hotel. Some of you may know Swanage in Dorset. I know that a few of you know it. And you will know the hotel. It's very distinct. It's at sort of the far end of the bay, high up on the cliff. I don't know when it was built. I'm guessing it would have been around the 1880s, so high Victorian. Red brick, lots and lots and lots and lots of white gables along the front, in the top. 3 stories, I think, ground floor, first floor, second floor, I'm trying to remember now. But beautifully placed on the top of the cliff, and out the back of the hotel faced the sea, beautiful, immaculate lawn, gardens, and then little wooden steps down onto the beach, and they had that bit of beach was privately owned by the hotel. In its day, it would have been super swanky, the swanky hotel. By the time I worked there in 1985, it was kind of faded grandeur, let's say. I mean, it was still pretty grand. You sort of walk into the dining room, high ceilings, and still very much that Victorian feel with deep dark mahogany panelling and great red velvet drapes. Yeah, pretty grand, pretty posh. I wasn't working in the posh bit though. I got a job as a kitchen porter. Oh my goodness, the lowliest of low positions in a hotel, or at least in the restaurant part of the hotel. You know, you've got your chefs, your sous chefs, your waiters, and then right at the bottom of the pile you've got your kitchen porters. Oh my goodness. So there was me and one other guy worked as kitchen porters. We worked 4 days on, 3 days off, if I remember correctly. And I think there was that overlap day when it was like deep clean day. So we were, both kitchen porters were in. It was deep clean day. But yeah, any of you, I'm sure some of you have worked in restaurants, waiting staff. You might even have worked as a kitchen porter. You will know, my God, it's a tough job. Long hours, hence 4 days a week rather than 5. So long hours, you're on your feet the whole time. Hot kitchens are such hot places to work, especially throughout summer. And when you're a kitchen porter, you spend most of your time elbow deep in great deep sinks full of scalding hot water, scrubbing pans. So it's incredibly humid. Oh, it was so hot. There were times at work, I turned up for work, I would be wearing a little skimpy pair of shorts and a bikini top, and that was it. It's too hot to wear anything else. And I do remember sort of I call it my bank of sinks for all my pots. At the far end was the bit where the waiters come in and dump the plates. So right next to that there's a sink for that initial wash of the plates before they go into the dishwasher. And it had one of those taps that sort of comes up and over, and it sort of stretches, it wiggles around, and it's got almost like a shower head on the end and a lever, and you press it and it's a blast of water. So you pick a plate up, blast it into the dishwasher, and it was cold water. So yeah, of course, on numerous occasions I'd be scrubbing my pot boiling hot. I'd go along to the sink, the plate sink, grab the thing, stick my head under it, blast of cold water on my head. Oh my goodness, those hours, the heat on one's feet, crazy. Of course I was only 18, so I was fit as a fiddle. But actually the memories, I can really picture the whole thing. I can picture the kitchen, I can picture all the different chefs, all the different chefs had their own little stations. I can picture still the past where the waiters come in to my left to dump plates that they've cleared away. But the memory really is about that kind of the friendships formed that summer, because it's very much a team effort. And what was lovely there was the chefs, they weren't at all pretentious. You know, like you see these chefs on telly like, well, hang on a sec. You know, like Gordon Scowly Face and that lot, shouting at people. There was none of that. I mean, at times it would get a bit shouty, but you know, kitchens are noisy, busy places, and sometimes you just need to shout and bark an order to get it done. But yeah, for the most part, what I remember was that it was just this wonderful team effort, and everyone would get a thank you. All the tips were shared equally amongst all the back staff as well as the waiters. But actually I sort of didn't care about the money even. For me it was this gorgeous long summer of having a blast. And you see, the thing was, where the little steps went down the beach to the private beach, the hotel had a windsurfing school. Excuse me. And so it was for guests. So if guests wanted to learn to surf, they could have windsurfing lessons for free. So windsurfing, not surfing. Swanage Bay doesn't really get big waves. Occasionally, if there's a spring tide or something like that, you might get some waves, but the whole bay, all the way from Handfast Point all the way around to Peveril Point, it's 3 miles long. It's a lovely big scoop of a bay. And the thing is as well, the shore, it shelves really shallowly, so you don't get any of this sort of like you're on the beach, you go into the sea and then ooh, suddenly it shelves. It's incredibly gentle, a gentle shelf, shall we say, which also means the water it feels like the sea there gets warmer sooner than everywhere else because it's so shallow. And it makes it a really, really safe beach for families. You know, toddlers can play in the water and obviously watch your toddlers, but it doesn't get deep suddenly. But because there's no waves, it's really not a place where people surf. I mean, you might do a bit of bodyboarding, but windsurfing down there is big. And I had, over the previous couple of summers, I've never had money to pay for a windsurfing lesson, of course not. But I'm quite good at making friends. I'm quite good at making friends with people who've got a board. Giz a go, can I have a go on your board? So by the summer that I was 18, I could windsurf, and it was considered okay for hotel staff to use the boards. If there were no lessons booked, just go down and you can have a surf. So obviously I made friends with the guys who ran the windsurfing school. There were a couple of them. So yeah, my memories are that it's almost less about being in the kitchen and more about this fabulous long summer, barefoot, on the beach, in the water, every day. And even after work, I would go for a swim at sort of midnight. I'd often go for a swim after work to cool down. Yeah, it's my dream job, absolute dream job. But the best of it, so where the hotel was, if I walked by the road so I was staying with my grandparents the whole time, lodging with them. The walk from the hotel to my grandparents, it's about a 10-minute walk by the road. Much better to walk home by the beach, and that'd be like, well, probably a 15-minute walk, but I always took longer, just relishing that nighttime walk on the beach. And one of the waiters, oh, be still my beating heart, one of the waiters was lodging with his great aunt, so his nan's sister, a few doors down from my grandparents. So it started to be that, I mean, the waiters finish work before the kitchen porters. Anyway, the kitchen porters are always the last people out of the kitchen. The first people in the kitchen, the last people out. God bless us, one and all. But I don't know how it came up. We were chatting in the kitchen one day, and I was saying where my nan lived. I said, I'm in Bay Crescent. And he was like, oh, well, my great aunt's on the Ballard estate. Oh, we should walk home together, sort of thing. And I was like, oh, that'd be nice. Oh my God, because I really fancied him. He was dreamy. He was he was handsome. Anyway, so we started walking home together, which meant he'd hang around after work a bit. But actually most nights the staff who left first, like the waiters, they'd all go down to the beach and they'd just sit on the beach, having a bottle of beer, chatting, kicking back a bit before going home. So yeah, we started walking home together, and one night we were walking home together and he took hold of my hand. Oh my goodness, it's like a Hallmark movie. Well, it really was. And then a few days later, walking home on the beach, we had a kiss. Oh God, to be young and carefree and How delicious. So honestly, that little message backwards and forth between Rob and myself about summer work, seasonal work, and it took me straight back to that fabulous summer of 1985. And the thing was, both of us, this boy and I, we both knew he was going to university as well, but we were going to universities in totally different parts of the country. We knew that this was only ever going to be a summer romance, and so we just really enjoyed it for what it was, and that was just so much time laughing on the beach, playing in the surf. It's not really surf, but you know, playing in the waves at the edge of the beach, sitting up till 1, 2 in the morning under the stars, sometimes with a little fire on the beach, quite often with a bottle of beer on the beach, just talking, sharing our dreams and hopes for the future. And I think the lovely thing when we're 18 is we are unedited at that age, aren't we? Nothing seems impossible, everything seems possible. So yeah, sharing your dreams at that age, it's just a wonderful thing, isn't it? So anyway, yeah, thank you, Rob, for mentioning seasonal work, because they are some really happy memories. And then I went off to university, and we wrote to each other for a little while, and in one of his letters he sent a photo of himself with his camera, because he's really into photography, but that was it. It all sort of fizzled out, even the writing. But I still have that photo in my treasures box. Oh, I'm feeling a bit misty-eyed and weepy now. It's funny, isn't it? I think it's just that thing of, yeah, the innocence of being 18 and nary a care in the world, just being utterly, madly in love, being brown. I was brown as an otter from pretty much living on the beach and in the sea all summer. Which, you know, you can probably tell. I mean, I've talked about the possibility, if I can't find a property around here that I can afford, that's where I'm going to be looking, because to me it is home. I just have to be careful though that if I do end up moving down there, I don't expect to turn 18 again overnight. Don't expect to be getting on a board and surfing in the bay, Vivi, because I don't, you know, actually, if I was stood on the board and hold it, because I think I've got good core strength still, if I was up on the board, I think I'd do okay. I'm pulling the sail into the wind, finding the wind. It's just that I wouldn't be able to get up onto the board. Falling off will be fine. Fall off, you go in the sea, it's fine. Yeah, it's just getting up and getting onto the board and getting upright. I just don't think I could do that now. But, you know, one of the attractions of moving that way is the sea. And the thought of being able to just get in the sea every day, well, maybe not in the winter, maybe with a wetsuit. But anyway, there we go. So yeah, wow, wonderful memories prompted. And then it made me think of something else, and it's perfect timing because of my sister's calendar. I know some of you will have seen it over my shoulder on the bookcase, but this is the picture for July. Sort of almost a cream tea, not quite a cream tea. This was when we had our trip, which is pretty much a year ago now, for Auntie Teapot's last road trip. So we were doing our Kent coast and then up into Essex, and we had a day in Essex, and then I came back to London and my sister carried on going north, but she stopped in Cambridge. So this is in Cambridge, where she met up with her cousin-in-law. So they had, I don't know, 2 or 3 days in Cambridge, and then my sister carried on up to Yorkshire. And she's chosen that picture specifically for July because, well, our birthdays are 2 days apart. We're July babies, and we both love a cream tea. Oh, so she thought that's the perfect picture. And when I got it at Christmas and I was flicking through all the pictures, of course I look at July first. I stop there and think, that is perfect. That to me is summer. It's our birthdays, cream tea. Although that's not actually a cream tea. But looking at it, it's making me long for a cream tea. And also these memories of thinking about Dorset in the summer, and I think I might have to have a day trip. I need a day trip to Dorset and have a cream tea. Okay, so some of you outside of the UK may not kind of know exactly what a cream tea is. It's a delicacy. It's a sort of a speciality of the West Country in the UK. So the West Country, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset and Dorset. Or should I say Somerset and Dorset, Devon and Cornwall, Kernow. So those 4 counties that are on the sort of the toe of the witch's boot. I lost my train of thought. West Country. Oh, cream teas. Yes. So very simply, a cream tea is best shared with someone else. A cream tea is always better when there are 2. It's a pot of tea, a regular pot of tea. The star of the show, though, is a scone, halved, take the top half off, lashings of gorgeous butter, then strawberry jam, although I prefer raspberry jam, and then a dollop on the top, and it has to be clotted cream. None of your double cream, none of that nonsense. It has to be clotted cream, which is cream which is slightly baked. And it's heavenly. Cream tea is to die for. Now there are 2 ways. We're gonna sort the wheat from the chaff with this one. There are 2 ways to do your cream tea. Whether you put on the jam and then the clotted cream, or the clotted cream and then the jam on top. It's a bit of a Cornwall-Devon rivalry. In Cornwall, it's jam first and then cream. In Devon, it's cream first and then jam, which is wrong. I'm so sorry to all my Devonian friends. I love you all to bits. You live in a gorgeous county. I adore Devon. But you do your cream teas wrong. End of. So all my Cornish friends are now going, yes, Vivi said it right. So yeah, if you're ever in the UK, for those of you who live in the UK, maybe you've never visited the West Country, if you ever get a chance, grab that chance and do it, because really it is some of the most beautiful countryside in the country. I mean, I know it's not as dramatic as our countryside in the north when we think of, North Yorkshire or the Lake District, North Wales. It isn't dramatic like that. It's a much more gentle, rolling landscape. But like if you think of the cliffs in Cornwall, that's pretty dramatic. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to the West Country, do. And while you are there, it's kind of constitutional. It's law, I think, that you must have a cream tea when you're in the West Country. And now, I really, really want a cream tea. Ever since I turned the page of the calendar, that's all I can think about. So, are you jam first or cream first? We're going to start World War III with this one. Jam first. Do it properly. Okay, complete change of subject now. A couple of books. So you might remember the card. This is from Angela that I showed a while ago. Now, both of these books I've read a few weeks ago now. I just adore that card. That's the one I was saying, wouldn't it be amazing in stained glass? But oh my goodness, that would be like a lifetime's work to make that in stained glass. Thank you, Angela. So she sent to me a book called A Fortunate Woman, what's it say? A Country Doctor's Story by Polly Morland. There we go, Polly Morland. Yeah, like I said, I've read both of them a few weeks ago, so this is rather than an in-depth review, this is going to be more sort of like the impression I got. So, I don't know anything about this book at all. A Country Doctor's Story, okay, that appealed to me straight away. Countryside, and actually both these books have got a kind of a medical aspect to them, so that interests me. I didn't understand the title, A Fortunate Woman, but it transpires she's taken the title from a book called A Fortunate Man by John Berger. Now, I'm aware of that book. If someone had come into my bookshop once upon a time and said, "Oh, have you got that book, Fortunate Man? Don't know who it's by," I'd have been able to say, "It's John Berger." There it is on the shelf. So I've known of that book for a long time, but knew nothing about it, nothing whatsoever. It's actually the story of a country doctor. But, mad bit, it's the same village. So the previous book was written, I think, in the mid-60s. Polly Morland is she's a journalist. She finds that book in her mum's, an old bookcase of her mum's. I can't remember that detail of it. But she decides that she wants to go to this village. I can't even remember where, is it Shropshire? On the border of Shropshire. It doesn't say. I'm so sorry. It might be Herefordshire. It sort of doesn't matter. It's a rural place, a valley, a river valley. So she wants to find the current doctor to see, is it the same? Our practice is the same. So she meets the current country doctor in this village, small town, and the doctor agrees to, her being interviewed and being trailed and that sort of thing. It's also, there's tons of photographs throughout, so we get a good feel for the doctor. That's the doctor that it's about. So, and I think she started interviewing her tail end of 2019. So then, of course, oh my goodness, 2020, COVID hits. So we spend a year following this doctor in her work, and the country bit, we get a little bit of a sense of that. Sometimes she's going out on her bicycle to see one of her patients. There's a little bit of talk about the river and sometimes the trees changing, but I would say overall that I didn't really feel sort of steeped in place in countryside, in that rural life. That didn't come across as anywhere near as strongly as more the doctor's work, her day-to-day practice. And the whole time I was reading it, I felt a little bit of sadness, really, because this kind of practice, it's so rare now. It's on the verge of becoming extinct, whereby one doctor will see a patient through 20, 30, possibly even 40 years of their life. One doctor is in a practice for all those years, a proper old-fashioned family doctor. And it's talked a little bit, they talk a little bit about it in here, but I also know from research I did a number of years ago when I was nursing about how much better health outcomes are with continuity of care, with these long-term family doctors. So yeah, I felt sadness about it and thinking I couldn't help but reflect on my own experiences in the last few years since my local surgery closed, where I did see the same, one of two doctors, I saw them, there were only two doctors, so over the course of 20 years, no, it's 15 years because it closed about 5 years, so over the course of 15 years or so, they were the same doctors I saw every time. So they know my history, they get to know me, they get to know the story that my face tells when I walk into the surgery. They can start to see, what are you troubled about? You're not telling me the whole story, come on, out with it, what's up with you, sort of thing. And the last 5 years at this new surgery where I don't know any of the doctors' names, I've never seen the same doctor more than once, it's nigh on impossible to get an appointment, I just do not feel cared for there. So yeah, it kind of made me a bit sad for the passing of, I think it is the end of an era. I think we are at the end of an era with not just the NHS, but with GP practice and how GP practice works within a community. And it's just a shame. It breaks my heart, actually, because I can see that this was undoubtedly, and it's backed up by research, this was a better way of doing things. So it's a really interesting read. I think also because it's the whole of the pandemic laid out again for us, and there were things I'd sort of forgotten. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, yeah, right at the beginning we didn't know this and we didn't know that, and to see it through the front line of a doctor's eyes, really fascinating. I recommend it. I recommend it from the point of view of medicine, sort of history, this cusp, the rural part of it. That's not what struck me about this book at all. So forget, if you're really into the rural thing and that's what you would want from this book, forget it. You're not going to get it. This is a book about a doctor's practice, and that wonderful warmth between her and her patients in probably one of the most difficult times in recent history. So yeah, it's a good read, but it did leave me a bit sad and frustrated and thinking, oh, there's got to be a better way, and maybe it was the old way. Anyway, so my next book, crikey, I don't want to end on a depressing note. This book was so challenging, but I think it's a book that everyone should read. It was given to me by my second cousin a couple of years ago when I think I've mentioned this before. It was Black History Month, and I was thinking there's a lot of sort of black author classics I've read, but I was thinking I need to spread my wings. Are there some new authors to read? What books haven't I read? So I was asking people for recommendations, and my second cousin, she gave me the Andrea Levy's Small Island, which, God, that was so depressing. Just at the very end, there's hope. There was a bit of hope, but an absolutely fantastic book. Highly recommend it. Andrea Levy, Small Island. It's written ages ago. It might even be 20 years old by now. I was very late to that party. And then this book, let me just see when it was written. I'm sure some of you will have read it, 2010, so I'm late to this party too. But this was the other book she recommended that I finally got around to reading. Oh, light's being a bit naughty for us today. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. The strapline, it says, she died in 1951. What happened next changed the world. In a nutshell, Henrietta Lacks was a woman who had cervical cancer. She had some pretty horrible treatment. Thank goodness treatments have changed. We're back in 1951. She died. They couldn't cure her. A sample of those cervical cancer cells was taken, and amazingly, those cells were kept alive and kept replicating. And I think it's the first time that scientists had been able to do that. Through work with those cells, masses of treatments, of medicines, it has changed the medical world without any, beyond recognition. Vaccines developed. It's astonishing what's been done. However, no one ever asked permission to take those cells. The family were never asked permission. The family didn't even know. And where the book becomes really difficult is the family, they are a poor black family. Was this family used? There's a wonderful line right at the beginning. Let me see if I can find it. So the daughter, Deborah, speaking in 2009 or so, she says, and this is in her words, but I always have thought it was strange. If our mother cells done so much for medicine, how come her family can't afford to see no doctors? And that's kind of the crux of the book. The book is so multi-layered. If you're going to read it, take your time. There's so much to take in. How to put it? Yeah, there's so many layers to it. There's the whole abuse of black people. There's the whole question of poverty and who gets the right to medicine, who doesn't, and if you're poor and black, what on earth kind of medicine can you possibly hope for? So there's the whole kind of ethics around race, ethics around poverty. Then there's, so layered, there's all the ethics around medicine. It's an ethical minefield, medicine, isn't it? I did make some notes. The ethics around education, when we link poor education with poverty and being black poor. What else? I made so many notes. Sorry, I should have looked at these before I turned the camera on, because it's an incredibly dense read. Ultimately, I think one is left with the feeling that my feeling was it's trying to weigh up that balance between sort of using humans and medical advancement. We do want medicine to advance. We want to find cures for, at the moment, the incurable. We want to find better treatments, and by better I mean safer, more gentle treatments for things like cancers. This book is a minefield. I found myself, even within a matter of 2 or 3 pages at times, of vacillating between thinking, yes, but we need this, and then thinking, we have no right to do this. Crikey, it's a powerful book. I'm not making much sense of it. Her cells, going back to 1951, it's the beginning of the science of virology. That's the study of viruses, of course. When we think of where we are now with the study of virology, and, for example, vaccines that we have against certain viruses, it's night and day. For me, reading, I struggled with the idea that the generation before, well, it's kind of 2 generations before me, really, isn't it? That 2 generations before me, it was just a completely unknown territory. And then when I think to my work as a nurse now, because I worked in immunology and infectious diseases, so masses of my work was virology. So all those things that I was studying would have been unknown without this moment in history. Or maybe they would be known, something else would have happened. Maybe we wouldn't know as much as we know now, if you see what I mean. I'm getting my tongue tied about all of this. So, yeah, an incredibly complex book. Difficult. I don't mean complex and difficult as in intellectually. I mean in the heart, ethically. Fascinating from the medical point of view. So if you have any interest in medicine, I know some of you might be working in virology, some of you are nurses, you might be working in virology, you'll find it fascinating. But more than that, in terms of the human story of being black and being poor, not very long ago. 1951, it's not that long ago. And probably for some folk in some areas, things haven't changed for the better much. So I'm going to heavy us all out now, aren't I? It's a heavy book. It is a heavy book. It's beautifully written, journalistic style, dead easy to read, an absolute page turner. When I say beautifully written, I got the sense that Rebecca Skloot, the author, she worked really hard with the family initially to develop trust, because as you can imagine, this family were really we don't trust anyone. We've been done over already. We don't trust anyone. But she persevered, and she was gentle with them and worked with them. And thank goodness, because that family's story has been told. It needed to be. It is a fantastic book. It might be my book of the year, even though I'm 13 years late to the party. If you see a copy, grab it, read it. You might want a handkerchief with you. I started this book. We're going on to a happier note now. This is how long ago I started the book. I was meeting up with a friend, a local-ish friend, who she'd wanted one of my lavender bags, so I'd held one back for her, and we were going to meet at a local pub to do the handover. And I always have a book with me. On this occasion, it happened to be this. I hadn't even started it. I just bunged it in my bag as I was flying out of the door. And anyway, I didn't have I had my phone with me, but we've been messaging on Facebook Messenger on the computer, and I don't have that on my phone. My phone is old school. I don't get messages on it. So she had messaged me to say she couldn't make it after all. I didn't know that. I'm already in the pub waiting. So I buy myself a pint. It's a lovely afternoon. I sat in the window doing a bit of people watching. Got my book out, started to read it, and within a few pages, I was crying. Tears streaming down my face. I'm just letting you know that, because if you're anything like me, if you connect with something on that level, yeah, tears are streaming down my face. A lady at the next table looked at me, she went, "Are you all right?" And I just said, "It's the book, it's awful." She said, "Oh my God," she'd read it. She said, "Oh, yeah, it's a tough read." Anyway, at that point, I put the book away, dried my tears, finished my pint, and thought, she's obviously not coming, I'll go home. Came home, turned the computer on, and there was a message from her, "Can't make it." Anyway, so yeah, fab book, read it in private, because you might cry. So, my gorgeosities, I think that's enough waffle for today. There are a couple more books to talk about. I'll talk about those in another video. Much happier. I think, look, I don't ever want to make someone miserable. Goodness knows. I want people to feel like they can come to my channel and watch a video and they're uplifting, they're fun, whatever. But sometimes, life is a bit serious, isn't it? And there are difficult things in life, and we shouldn't shy away from them. I'm not going to talk current affairs and current politics. That's all too hideous. We get that on the news. We don't need it. But every now and again, in one of my videos, I am going to drop in something that's a bit hard, because it's worth it, because that's life, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, so the other two books I'm going to talk about are completely different. Joyous, uplifting, but they will wait for another day. What should we do next? Garden, kitchen? I don't know. We'll see. Whatever takes our fancy, eh? But I will see you again really soon, I hope. Until then, happy reading. Happy memories of first loves, first jobs, walking on the beach under the moonlight. Oh, I'm going to go and just have 5 minutes of reverie. Oh, and cream teas. I don't think anywhere around here sells clotted cream. I might have to order some online. Get it sent fresh up from the West Country. All right, lovelies. See you soon, I hope. Until then, lots of love. Cheerio.